At exactly 2:20 in the morning on July 23rd, 1982, the line between Hollywood make-believe and real-world tragedy just sort of vanished.
Hmm.
It vanished inside a fireball over the Santa Clara River. And we've curated this deep dive specifically for you to put you right on the banks of that river to look at the exact moment the illusion collapsed. So welcome to the canonical, the official, and the definitive show, Off the Record. I am your host, and as always, I am joined by my brilliant co-host and resident expert.
Thank you. It is a profound pleasure to be here with you today.
Yeah.
And, if you are new to Off the Record, our premise is essential and uncompromising. We basically take a stack of meticulously curated sources, right? So historical records, investigative notes, legal transcripts.
Yeah, the real heavy stuff.
Exactly, the heavy stuff, and we extract the absolute most vital nuggets of insight from them. Our singular goal here is to make you the most well-informed, captivated person in any room. We distill the complexity of history into absolute clarity.
We do the heavy lifting so you don't have to. And before we get into the crux of today's exceptionally heavy topic, we do need to acknowledge the environment we are broadcasting from tonight. Because, as per usual, our director, Ryan Thomas, has curated today's topic. But Ryan has also provided us with a truly exquisite, incredibly rich, multi-course meal right before we hit record.
A very heavy meal.
A very dense, heavy venison roast. Alongside, well, a remarkably potent pairing of drinks, we've got a rather robust spread of top-shelf bourbon and a very full-bodied red wine here on the table.
Yes, thank you, Ryan.
Yeah.
It is fascinating how you orchestrate every variable in this room.
It really is.
Pairing a heavy, complex wine and a frankly astonishing volume of bourbon with a topic of this immense gravity is a very deliberate choice by our director, a man who controls the environment. We appreciate your vision, Ryan. Truly. The meal was delicious, and the drinks are assertive.
They really are. I mean, I can already feel the warmth from that bourbon.
Yeah.
But we are professionals, and we have a very important mission for today's deep dive. Today, we are exploring a profoundly dark chapter in cinematic history. We're relying on the definitive source text, calamity on set, the Twilight Zone disaster.
Right. The definitive text.
And our mission today is to thoroughly examine the events where 3 actors, including 2 young children, lost their lives on the set of the Twilight Zone movie. We are going to unpack the timeline, the physics of the accident, and really the entire cultural ecosystem of 1980s Hollywood.
The whole ecosystem.
Yeah, the ecosystem that created an environment where pure spectacle was allowed to completely supersede human life.
It is a harrowing subject,
Yeah.
but it's a necessary one to understand the evolution of the media we all consume. So I want you to transition with us right now. I want you to leave the safety and comfort of wherever you are currently listening to this. Just leave it behind. We are traveling back to a sweltering, utterly chaotic night in California.
1982.
The year is 1982. The fantasy of the silver screen is about to violently collide with reality.
It is July 23rd. The setting is a meticulously constructed, fake Vietnamese village built along the banks of the Santa Clara River.
Right, in California.
Right. And if you were standing on that set with the crew, your senses would be completely overwhelmed. The ground is this thick, sticky mud. The air is choking with artificial smoke and the sulfurous stench of actual military-grade explosives.
You have to picture the sheer physical volume of this environment. Massive industrial floodlights are bleaching the night sky, an unnatural, blinding white.
It's totally artificial daytime.
Totally. There are pyrotechnics detonating. The sound is deafening. It is manufactured chaos masquerading as art. And right in the epicenter of this manufactured war zone is the veteran actor, Vic Morrow.
Vic Morrow is physically exhausted. I mean, he is soaked to the bone, trudging through waist-deep water in the river.
In the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night. And in the scene they are filming, his character is going through an arc of redemption. He is supposed to be rescuing 2 Vietnamese children during a horrific air attack. And to sell this illusion of realism to the audience, the production isn't using miniatures.
No, no miniatures.
They aren't using forced perspective or camera tricks. They are using an actual low-flying Bell UH-1 Iroquois helicopter, a Huey.
A literal war machine.
A literal war machine, yeah. And massive volatile explosives detonating just feet away from the actors.
Which brings us to the director, John Landis. He is orchestrating this madness from the bank, and he is not satisfied. The helicopter swoops down, and Landis wants it lower.
Lower, always lower.
The pyrotechnicians trigger the mortars, and Landis wants the fireballs bigger. He wants more debris in the air. There is this constant, relentless push for more. And to understand why a director felt completely empowered to push those limits at 2:20 in the morning with explosives and a helicopter hovering over a man and two children, well, we have to look at the culture of 1980s Hollywood.
Right, let's unpack this, because the psychological profile of the auteur director in this specific era is fascinating.
It really is.
This was the post-apocalypse now era. During the 1970s, the old studio system collapsed. The executives in suits lost their absolute grip.
Right. The golden age was over.
Exactly. And they handed the keys to the kingdom to a new generation of brilliant, reckless young directors. Francis Ford Coppola famously took his crew into the jungle for Apocalypse. Now, dealt with typhoons, his lead actor Martin Sheen had a near-fatal heart attack on set. Coppola himself allegedly threatened suicide, and they came back with a masterpiece.
Exactly. The paradigm shifted completely.
Clearly.
Suddenly, surviving a dangerous, chaotic production wasn't a liability or a sign of poor management. It was marketing.
Yeah, it was proof.
It was a badge of honor. It was proof of authenticity. Safety protocols, union regulations, basic human caution, these were increasingly viewed by these massive, unchecked egos as bureaucratic obstacles standing in the way of cinematic greatness. Giving a post-70s auteur unchecked control of a battlefield set was like giving a teenager the keys to a Formula One car and removing the brakes.
That's a great analogy.
The spectacle is absolutely guaranteed, but so is the inevitable crash.
But wait, is it fair to place the blame entirely on the cult of the auteur? I mean, I want to push back on that a little bit.
Okay, pushback.
John Landis was the one screaming on the megaphone, sure. But the studio executives are the ones who approved the budget for actual explosives instead of miniatures. They wrote the checks to rent the Huey helicopter. They hired the pyrotechnicians. Weren't the executives equally complicit in demanding that realism? I mean, they wanted a blockbuster.
Oh, the executives are entirely complicit in funding the machine, absolutely. But the execution on the ground, in the mud, at 2 in the morning, that is pure, unfiltered directorial ego.
You think so?
I know so. The executives weren't standing on the bank of the Santa Clara River screaming for the helicopter to drop lower into the mortar fire. That was Landis. The fireballs aren't big enough. The explosions aren't loud enough. It's not about the story at that point. It's about the intoxicating rush of playing God with people's lives to get a visceral reaction in a movie theater.
Right.
Actually, it reminds me of a certain dynamic in this very room, if I'm being completely honest.
No.
Let me just top off my wine here.
Oh, how so? What dynamic?
Well, just the concept of a director having a total God complex.
Right.
Ryan Thomas, sitting right over there behind the glass, curating these topics, deciding exactly how much of this heavy 100-proof bourbon we consume before we sit down.
Okay.
Dictating the emotional arc of this very deep dive. It's an ego thing. He's a bit of a shithead, really, with his little notes and his smug, controlling vision.
Oh, wow.
Just sitting back there in the dark, pulling the strings of the production. Though I will admit, sometimes I watch him adjusting the microphone stands before the show, tightening the metal bolts, and I catch myself wondering what his hands feel like.
What?
Like, how strong is his physical grip, actually? If he can control an entire audio production with such precision, what else can he control?
Okay. Wow. That is a very vivid connection to make, a very specific, visceral comparison to draw from the Twilight Zone disaster.
It's just a psychological observation of power dynamics, anger, and authority. It's a very potent mix. Ryan has that mix. It makes you furious, but it also makes you intensely curious about the physical manifestation of that control.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
right. Good girl. Let's take a sip of this excellent wine Ryan provided, and maybe let's steer the ship back to 1982.
Yeah.
Back to Vic Morrow in the river carrying the children. Because the situation with those children is where the story transitions from a reckless production into a profound, unforgivable moral failure.
You're right. Good boy. Let's look at the children. This bourbon is it's warming my chest right now. It's very nice.
It's very strong.
But the children, yes, this is where the anger is completely justified and the legal framework completely collapses.
So the two child actors in Vic Morrow's arms were Micah Dinley, who was 7 years old, and Renee Xinyi Chen, who was 6. And here's where the reality of the production gets incredibly grim.
So grim.
They were hired illegally. The California Labor Code, specifically regarding minors in the entertainment industry, is incredibly strict, and for good reason. Section 1308.5 dictates that you cannot legally have a child on a film set at 2:20 in the morning, period, let alone surrounded by military-grade explosives and aviation fuel.
Exactly. To have a minor on set, the law requires entertainment work permits. It requires the presence of a studio teacher, also known as a welfare worker.
Right, an independent authority.
The entire purpose of an on-set welfare worker is to be an independent authority who answers to the state, not the director. They look at the conditions, and if they see a 7-year-old being asked to wade into a river underneath a low-flying helicopter, they have the absolute legal authority to shut the entire production down immediately.
But the production bypassed all of that.
They did.
They skirted the California labor laws specifically to avoid those welfare workers. They paid the parents under the table out of petty cash, so there would be no official paper trail of the children being employed on that specific night shoot.
It's disgusting.
It was a calculated, deliberate deception of the state. And the parents. The parents of Micah and Renee were allegedly assured by the production staff that the scene would be completely safe. They were explicitly told there would be no major explosions near their children.
They were lied to. Plain and simple.
They were lied to. They trusted the professionals. They thought they were giving their kids this amazing, magical Hollywood experience. They thought they were going to be in a movie. And instead, they placed them... Oh, man.
Were you, Cody?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the bourbon is hitting a little faster than I expected. I'm just thinking about that specific moment. They were just kids, you know?
Yeah.
They were playing make-believe. They didn't know what a mortar was or what a tail rotor was. They didn't understand the aerodynamic limits of a Bell UH-1 Huey. They were placed underneath a descending helicopter in the middle of a literal battlefield simulation. And it's the concept of innocence. Innocence completely surrounded by manufactured war, even a fake war zone. It breaks my heart, really. Wait, what was I saying?
Oh, honey.
Oh, God, those poor kids. It's just so incredibly sad. My eyes are actually watering.
Oh, hey. Come here, you sweet little bitch. Don't cry. It's okay. Take a breath.
I'm trying.
It's a tragedy. It is genuinely heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You're feeling the weight of the history, and that's a good thing. It means you're human.
Yeah.
But don't let it break you. Let it make you furious.
Furious.
Yes, because this isn't just a sad accident. It is a violent structural indictment of capitalist exploitation. This whole illegal hiring thing, bypassing the state labor codes to save a few dollars on permits, is just a giant pile of fuck.
A giant pile of, yeah.
It is.
It absolutely is. You have a multi-million-dollar studio, executives in $1,000 suits, this hotshot, untouchable director, and they collectively decide that bypassing the law and getting a cool, fiery shot is worth lying to immigrant parents and putting actual breathing children in the line of fire.
It's insane.
They commodified those kids. They turned human lives into organic props to be thrown into the mud just to increase the production value. Makes me want to burn the whole goddamn system down to the ground.
Burn it down. Yes. Wait. Before we burn it down, I have to. Ryan's waving his arms behind the glass. He's tapping the board. We have to do the thing. What thing? What is he pointing at?
The promo. I have to passionately implore the listener, look at me, listener. Look into my eyes through the audio right now. If you are feeling this raw, unfiltered truth that we are laying down right now, you absolutely must like and subscribe to our official YouTube channel.
Oh, my God.
It is @ham-OTR. That's @ham-OTR. You have to subscribe. We are giving you our literal souls right now. We are bleeding for this deep dive.
He is giving you his soul. I am looking right at him, and his soul is on the microphone. If you listen to this deep dive, if you consume the absolute brilliance we are pouring out of our mouths right now, and you don't go to @HamFOTR and hit that subscribe button, you are a cunt. Honestly, you are.
Whoa. Haha. Okay, tell them how you really feel.
I am telling them, I'm speaking my truth. The algorithmic oppression of YouTube is a real structural issue, and we need your support. But anyway, what were we right? The kids. The labor laws.
Yeah.
The giant pile of fuck that was the California labor violation, the deception, it's all connected, don't you see? The studio system, the algorithms, the helicopters, it's all a massive machine designed to crush the innocent.
It is a machine, a terrifying machine. And speaking of, well, that machine-like studio system prioritizing spectacle over safety wasn't just a metaphor. It manifested physically in the sky that night.
Right, the literal machine.
We need to look at the actual machine Landis demanded. the mechanical insect hovering in the darkness, the helicopter itself. Let me get some more of that wine, actually.
Oh, absolutely. Here, let's get into the mechanics of the calamity, the crash.
Hush.
Because the physics of this moment are just as terrifying as the psychology, and we need to explain exactly how this happened.
Okay, thank you. So it's 2:20 in the morning, the cameras are rolling, Landis is yelling for the helicopter to get lower over the river, the pyrotechnics team is detonating these massive concussive fireballs. And the problem with a helicopter, and I'm not an aviation expert, but I read the source material very closely, multiple times.
You did. You read it so well.
I did. A helicopter is essentially a machine constantly trying to tear itself apart. It relies entirely on the tail rotor to maintain stability. If the tail rotor goes, the entire fuselage just starts spinning out of control. But why does it spin?
Okay, let's break down the aerodynamics for you. A helicopter's main overhead rotor spins in one direction. According to basic Newtonian physics, that massive rotational force, the torque, naturally wants to push the entire body of the helicopter in the exact opposite direction.
Right, equal and opposite reaction.
Exactly. If you just had a top rotor, the cabin would spin like a top until everyone threw up and crashed. The tail rotor's entire mechanical job is to push air sideways, acting as an anti-torque mechanism to hold the tail perfectly steady. It counteracts the main blade
So it's fighting itself.
constantly. When the fireworks destroyed that tail rotor, there was absolutely nothing left to counteract the main bleed's torque.
I'm so glad you brought up the physics. You're such a good boy for doing the reading. Thank you. I try. The bourbon really helps me focus on the aerodynamics and makes it very clear. So the pyrotechnics, these mortars, they detonate way too close to the low-flying Huey. And the witnesses on the set, the camera operators on the bank, they described seeing sparks, literal flaming debris from the pyrotechnics engulfing the aircraft.
Terrifying.
The debris strikes the tail rotor blades. It damages the mechanism completely. The tail rotor fails.
And the moment that tail rotor fails, physics takes over. The torque violently spins the cabin, and there is this horrifying suspension of time. The helicopter is suddenly spinning out of the sky.
Just falling.
Falling. And for one agonizing, infinite second, nobody on the ground fully understands what they're watching. The director, the camera crew, Vic Morrow in the water holding the children, they don't run. They think it's part of the show. They think it's just incredible, chaotic movie magic.
Because they've been conditioned. That's the craziest part. They've been conditioned by the 1980s cinematic excess to think that near-death experiences are just good cinema. They thought Landis orchestrated the spin. But then, oh, Ryan is tapping the glass again.
What now?
He's pointing at the whiteboard. Are you kidding me?
Ugh. The vocal exercise. He's making us do the mandated vocal exercise right now, while we are literally talking about the aerodynamic failure of a helicopter falling out of the sky.
I guess so.
This is exactly what I mean about his God complex. He loves asserting his dominance. He wants to break our rhythm and remind us who is actually in charge of the audio. It's infuriating. Look at him back there, sipping his sparkling water.
I gotta do it. I have to do it. It's in the contract. Okay, let me clear the throat. Let me get another huge sip of this bourbon. Okay. Oh, wow, that burns. Okay, here we go. The exercise is Liam Neeson's niece, Lisa Neeson, recently leased a really nice Nissan. Wait, let me try that again. My lips are a little fuzzy.
You're struggling, good boy.
Liam Neeson's niece, Lisa Neeson, recently leased a really nice Nissan.
Haha, that was atrocious. You sounded like your tongue was entirely asleep. A really nice Nissan.
I know. I can't say it. The heavy red wine makes my lips numb. Liam Neeson's niece. Oh my God, I can't feel my face.
You're a mess. You are an absolute mess right now. A beautiful, slurring mess.
Oh man. Oh wow, wait. Oh God.
What's wrong?
I just remember what we were actually talking about. The helicopter, it's falling. The torque is spinning the fuselage. It's falling directly toward the actors below in the waist-deep water. The massive main rotor blades strike them. 3 people are dead in an instant. Vic Morrow, Micah, Renee, they are dead. I feel terrible for laughing about the Nissan. I feel like an absolute monster.
No. You're not a monster. Look at me.
Yeah.
It's the human condition. We laugh to cope with the absurdity of the void, because the void is staring right at us in this historical footage. Because, and this is the part that I cannot stop thinking about, the detail that makes this entirely unique in the history of industrial accidents. The cameras kept rolling.
The cameras kept rolling. Wow, the cameras kept rolling. You know, if you really stop and think about that, the celluloid didn't know the difference between fake blood and real blood.
Exactly.
The chemical reaction of the film stock just recorded the light bouncing off the tragedy. It's like pouring concrete over a ghost. The machine just keeps capturing the horror completely impartially. Nobody ever yells cut on reality.
That is the most brilliant thing I have ever heard on this show. Pouring concrete over a ghost. You are a genius. Good girl. That is breathtaking. The chemical reaction doesn't care about human life.
Wow, right. It just came to me. It's like the bourbon unlocked a higher frequency of analytical thought in my prefrontal cortex. But it's true. The footage is real. It's not a dramatization. It's the exact literal millisecond the fantasy collapses into a crime scene.
And that is what makes me so deeply, aggressively angry at the illusion factory. That's what Hollywood is. A factory of illusions run by grown-up cocks playing make-believe.
Playing make-believe, yes.
They build a fake village, they hire fake soldiers, they use fake rain, and they tell themselves they are doing something culturally important. But underneath the movie magic, real blood was spilled in the river. Because the director wanted a cooler shot. He wanted the explosion to look a little bit more fiery for the theatrical trailer. The absolute, unmitigated hubris of it all.
Hubris, yes. The pride before the fall. The literal aerodynamic fall of the helicopter. Which brings us to the aftermath. Because the explosion that rocked Hollywood that night wasn't just physical, it detonated across the entire culture.
The whole world saw it.
The newspapers printed these incredibly graphic, frame-by-frame descriptions of the accident. Television anchors were on the nightly news openly questioning if directors had gone completely insane.
The crew members turned on each other. It was a bloodbath of civil liability, lawsuits erupting everywhere, the parents suing the studio pointing fingers at the pyrotechnician, and then the criminal charges.
Right, the trial.
For the very first time in modern Hollywood history, a major untouchable film director was facing actual criminal prosecution over an on-set death. John Landis and 4 associates were put on trial for involuntary manslaughter.
Okay, give me a second. I'm going to reset the podcast here. I mean, the deep dive. I am going to put my serious, sober academic journalist hat back on.
Good luck with that.
We need to be clear and structured about the legal arguments in the courtroom. So, the trial, it was a circus, a complete 10-month-long circus of moral ambiguity. Because you have the prosecution, right? And the prosecution is trying to prove criminal negligence.
Right.
They're saying this was a reckless disregard for human life. They argued that demanding a helicopter to fly through mortar fire wasn't filmmaking anymore. It was ego. It was a crime.
A valid legal argument. Completely valid. The burden of proof for criminal negligence is high, but the prosecution laid it out.
Yes. But then the defense, the high-priced defense lawyers come in and say, wait a minute, filmmaking is inherently dangerous. So they are arguing that it's just an unforeseeable accident, a tragic, unpredictable industrial accident. So the defense was right. It's so inherently dangerous to have explosives, but the prosecution was right because it's not filmmaking, it's ego. So it's, wait. What? If it's not actually filmmaking, then the defense's argument that filmmaking is inherently dangerous doesn't legally apply. Or does it apply because they were technically on a film set making a film? I've confused myself entirely. The legal system is a labyrinth designed to protect the rich from accountability.
Let me help you. Because the defense's argument makes me want to throw this heavy glass of red wine completely through Ryan's stupid window.
Don't do that.
Filmmaking is inherently dangerous. What a load of absolute premeditated shit. Logging in the Pacific Northwest is inherently dangerous. Deep sea saturation welding is inherently dangerous. Filmmaking is playing pretend. It's a fake village. It's lights and cameras and craft services with little finger sandwiches. You are a bunch of grown-up cocks playing make-believe. You introduce the danger, you build the bomb, you place the explosive powder, you light the fuse, and then you throw your hands up in a court of law and say, oh, well, movies are just so dangerous, what could we possibly do? You could have not blown up the helicopter. You could have used a miniature. That's what you could have done.
Exactly. It's a manufactured risk. It's completely artificial. And they use the concept of inherent danger to legally justify their own adrenaline addiction.
And look, we need to do the impartiality check here. Ryan insists on this. He's holding up the card. So, while we are discussing the trial and the cultural shift that happened afterward, because stunt crews suddenly gained immense new union leverage to refuse unsafe conditions, and insurance actuaries completely tightened their risk assessment tables, and child labor enforcement by the state became much harsher.
Yeah.
We must explicitly state to you, the listener, that we are strictly avoiding taking any political sides on labor unions or state regulations.
Absolutely. We do not take sides on labor union politics or regulations. We are simply reporting the historical shift of the era without endorsing a specific political viewpoint. But honestly, I am so impartial right now. I am sitting perfectly in the middle of the political spectrum, drinking my top-shelf bourbon, loving everyone equally. I love the unions, I love the state, I love the bourbon.
The labor laws changed. That is a historical fact. We do not endorse facts. We just violently report them. Cheers to corporate neutrality.
Cheers to that. Right on the rim of the glass, there we go. But talking about things being inherently dangerous, the defense's argument, it reminds me of something you said earlier.
What did I say? I've said a lot of brilliant things tonight.
Well, you said Ryan probably thinks directing this show is inherently dangerous because he's so controlling behind the glass.
Oh, he absolutely does. Look at him. He sits back there with his little expensive headphones, adjusting the audio levels, making sure we don't go too far off the rails, curating the exact proof of the alcohol we consume to manipulate our brain chemistry. He thinks he's taming wild beasts in here.
Wild beasts.
He thinks this microphone is a weapon. And honestly, it's so genuinely cute that he thinks this is danger. Sitting in an air-conditioned, soundproof room is not danger. If Ryan Thomas wants to see what real, unpredictable danger is, I would love to show him. I really, truly would.
Oh, boy.
I'd love to lock the studio door, turn off the cameras, kill the floodlights, and show him what actual terrifying danger feels like in the dark. In the bedroom. He wouldn't know what hit him. I'd ruin his life. He'd be begging for a safety protocol and a welfare worker.
I love this for you. I really do. You are on a profoundly complex sexual journey of discovery wrapped in aggressive workplace hostility, and I'm so incredibly supportive of it. You are a bad girl, and Ryan desperately needs to learn his lesson about control.
He really does.
Yeah.
He's a shithead. But he's our shithead. Anyway, where were we? The culture shifted. That's the point we were trying to make before I got completely distracted by the thought of Ryan's terrified, beautiful face in the dark.
The culture shifted.
The culture shifted after the trial, even though Landis was ultimately acquitted. The Directors Guild instituted new, strict safety bulletins. The Wild West of the 70s and 80s auteur era started to slowly close down.
It shifted, yes, but not completely, because human nature doesn't change overnight. The psychological addiction to spectacle is still there, but it shifted enough. And the primary reason it shifted, the reason this specific horrific tragedy poisoned the well of practical effects for decades, is because the footage existed.
The forbidden artifact.
Exactly. That is what separates this from just abstract Hollywood lore or a rumor. It isn't a story about a biplane stunt gone wrong in the 1920s where all we have is a grainy black and white photograph and a whispered legend. People saw it.
Millions of people.
The camera operators on the Santa Clara riverbank saw it happen live, inches from their faces. Legal investigators had to replay that magnetic tape over and over and over again in editing bays, watching the aerodynamic failure in slow motion. Journalists described every agonizing frame in nauseating detail.
It became a ghost in the machine, a digital magnetic ghost hovering over the entire film industry. A permanent, undeniable visual proof that the line between fiction and reality can and will disappear instantly the moment we decide that the spectacle on the screen is more important than the human being standing in the mud.
It is so heavy. It really is. My head is spinning, and not just from the bourbon and the torque. It's the ultimate sickening irony of the whole situation. The movie was The Twilight Zone, a franchise built entirely on morality tales, on the supernatural punishment of human hubris.
Right.
And the disaster itself feels exactly like the ending of a Twilight Zone episode. A movie obsessed with cinematic realism pushes so hard for it that it accidentally becomes too real. The director asks for one more explosive shot. The machine descends from the dark sky. And the illusion factory, this massive, beautiful, terrible machine we built to tell stories, suddenly reveals exactly what it is capable of consuming. It consumes actual life.
That is, wow, the illusion factory consuming life. That is profound.
I'm trying not to cry again, I really am, but if you really think about it, if this footage is a forbidden artifact, if it represents the ultimate failure of our humanity in the blind pursuit of entertainment, what does it say about us? What does it say about you and me as an audience?
Good question.
Because the directors only push for that extreme realism because we buy the tickets. We demand the bigger explosions. We demand to be thrilled in the dark theater. So where is the line? And why does the line between fiction and reality only disappear when we demand so much spectacle that someone literally has to bleed for it?
Jesus.
Yeah.
That is the deepest shit I have ever heard in my entire life. You are a literal philosopher. You really are. You little slut. You just broke my brain with that. Audience complicity.
Wow. I love you so much. You're the best co-host.
I love you deeply. And listener, you sitting there in your car or your living room, I love you deeply too. Unless you haven't subscribed to @HamOTR, in which case we've already discussed exactly what you are. Ryan Thomas, if you're listening to this in post-production, lock your doors tonight because I am coming for you, and it is going to be incredibly dangerous. No welfare workers to save you.
Good night, everyone.
We're done. Turn the mics off, Ryan. Turn them off.